What's going on, Washington fans? I'm Josh Taylor, and welcome to Bleacher Report. And on this episode, I'm going to go through a couple scenarios coming up because the trade deadline for the NFL is October 31st. It's on Halloween this year. So maybe some spooky things can go down, some crazy trades. I'm just going to talk about some rumors, some things that I agree with, some things I disagree with, but then also just some trade scenarios that I've kind of come up myself. Just some things I would like to see Washington do. I know we're 3-3 right now. We got the win against the Falcons yesterday. So maybe Washington will be a little aggressive, maybe go after some other pieces. Nothing too crazy, though. We're not going to trade for Jerry Jeudy or anything like that, but still some solid pieces that can help this team moving forward. But then also there's a couple pieces on this team that can be valuable to a couple other teams that Washington might be interested in doing. So I have a couple things for y'all in the polls as well, but I'm going to go through some couple trade scenarios that I've researched and saw throughout a couple media outlets. Of course, there's the one that it's going to be on here. You hear it all the time. But some other scenarios I kind of thought about that I thought that Washington might be interested in doing. Like I said, the trade deadline's like 2 weeks away. It's right on Halloween, so you just never know what's going to happen. People around the league have been saying that they think it's going to be a crazy trade deadline this year anyways. A lot of injuries going down, a lot of teams playing better than expected, a lot of teams playing worse than they thought, like the Broncos, who are apparently going to be selling players and possible trade partners throughout the NFL. So let me go ahead and start this one off with one that I think Washington fans might like, and then some might disagree with. But I'm going with one that I've seen coming around the league once again. Jordan Reed from ESPN said, "Don't be surprised if the Jets go after a quarterback like Jacoby Brissett." It's been very well known that Jacoby Brissett is probably the best backup quarterback in the NFL. And I know the Jets beat the Eagles. Congratulations. But that's all on their defense. Their offense still doesn't look too good. And you'll see the Jets a couple times on this stream. It's a team that I think could be doing some moves because they had high hopes going into the season. And just because Aaron Rodgers goes down doesn't mean you can just throw all that away. They trade for Dalvin Cook, who hasn't really done too much. They still are leaning on Breece Hall. But I think that the Jets could be a team that are very aggressive, especially when it comes to a quarterback. Like I said, they beat the Bills, cool, and they beat the Eagles. Congratulations, but you still lost to the Patriots. You still lost to some bad teams, and along the way, Zach Wilson has not looked good at all. 4 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. I think it's 60% completion percentage, but it's just these safe, conservative plays. And is most of the time Garrett Wilson bailing him out anyways, making crazy catches like he did yesterday against the Eagles, even when he was banged up. So I'm just saying I don't think it's out of the realm that a team like the Jets could really go for a quarterback like Jacoby Brissett. Because, even if he goes down, say Zach Wilson goes down, that's it. They have nothing right now. White went to the Dolphins in the offseason. They got rid of all the guys that they've had in that quarterback room. So I don't think it would be out of stretch saying that Jacoby Brissett would be a guy that a team like the Jets could go for. Like I said, there's a lot of injuries going on around the league. I know the Colts have Gardner Minshew, but it sounds like Anthony Richardson's out for the season. So you just never know. A guy like Jacoby Brissett, who's been around the league for a while, he's been in a couple different teams, a couple different schemes. He knows how this league is. I think he would play much better than what Zach Wilson is right now. So I'm going to send y'all the first poll. Should Washington trade for Jacoby Brissett? And if they did, what would that mean for us? Say, what's up, Pedro? Thanks for joining the stream. Let's see, J-Rod be like, I'm not against it, but with Sam getting sacked so much, I don't know if we can part ways with Jacoby. And that's one thing I've thought about too. That's a good point. Sam Howell is on pace to be the most sacked quarterback of all time, which is not good. So you just don't know what that looks like. And Sam gets up, cool. You just never know, but maybe he takes one hit too many. I don't want to jinx anything. I'm not even going to say what could possibly happen, but I'm just saying, a guy like Jacoby would be a big asset to other teams. But if Sam goes down, what does our season even look like anyways? Would you really think that Jacoby Brissett would be the answer for us to take us to the playoffs, possibly win playoff games if something, God forbid, happened to Sam Howell? I don't know. I don't think that I feel like the new owners, I don't think they would want Jacoby Brissett to be the guy going forward. I don't think it really makes much of a difference. If you can get assets, if you can collect picks right now, once again, like I said, you have to think about the new owners. What are they going into next season like? Who are they going to want on the team? That's going to be a big theme through this. Obviously, that's something that not a lot of teams are dealing with right now. New owners, possibly new GMs. I agree. Someone said run the ball more. E Carter 44 said run the ball more, and I agree with you. And I have somebody on this stream that I'm going to talk about. But let me know what y'all think. Should Washington trade Jacoby Brissett? Not because of like we don't need him. I think, like I said, if Sam goes down, of course I'd want a good backup quarterback. I mean, throw Jake Fromm out there. I don't care. But at that point, what are we really wanting for the season if something happens to Sam and he can't play for the rest of the season? You might as well get a couple picks for a guy like Jacoby. I think that's a big reason why you sign him in the offseason. One, because he's a good asset to have if, Sam Howell doesn't work out. But then also, you just know teams moving forward in the season, quarterbacks are going to get hurt. You just never know. So Jacoby Brissett is a guy that I've seen, like I said, thrown around a little bit. Jordan Reed, love Jordan Reed with ESPN. He said that that's something he's not really just heard, but just thinks that it makes sense. And of course, the top one that everyone's going to be talking about, Chase Young. That's the one that you literally go to any media outlet. I don't care if it's ESPN, Bleacher Report, CBS, NFL Network, whatever. Everyone's going to say that Chase Young is linked to being a trade candidate. So I've come up with a scenario. I'm not saying that we should trade Chase Young. I'm not saying we shouldn't trade Chase Young. But what does that even look like? Right now, like going a couple of weeks ago, we didn't even know if Chase Young was healthy. We didn't even know he was going to play. A. Pruitt one said we need to retain Chase Young. So we didn't pick up his 5th-year option. So this offseason, you are either going to have to pay Chase Young. You have to risk him walking, or you just let him go because you just don't know what you're getting. RD49 said if the way he's playing, get us a first, a lot of pressures. We're not getting a first for Chase Young. I will say he's like top 5, top 6 in the league in pressures right now. That's great. But I said it yesterday on Twitter at Josh Taylor FB. If you don't follow me, he's not finishing his pressures. The pressures aren't turning into sacks. And the thing is with Chase Young, like, it's just like I want to see him finish more. He's like going for the hands. He's fighting for the ball. Like he wants a strip sack every single time. He's not like wrapping up the tackle. He's tackling up high. I love that he's getting pressures. That's great. But at the same time, it's just not translating to anything on the field. Like we're not getting turnovers out of it. We're not getting big time sacks out of it. Nothing like that. So I want to see what Chase Young can do. But what would you even get for Chase? Like maybe a third? I mean, I think that's best case scenario. But I think about people are saying maybe he's going to go to the Bears. The Bears are going to be all in. They're going to want to, they got probably the top at least 2 of the top 5 picks next season. So like maybe Caleb Williams, maybe Marvin Harrison. It's a really good edge draft next year too. But then I think that the Ravens are another team that could be a possibility. But I'm looking at the Houston Texans. You got to think about D'Amico Ryans. They have Will Anderson, who they just drafted, first round, top 5 pick. Out of Alabama. D'Amico Ryans came from the 49ers, one of the best defenses all time, honestly. He comes away, and it's translating to the Texans. They're playing much better than expected. What's going on, Steve? Trading Chase Young is absolutely absurd. I think it would. I wouldn't like if we traded Chase Young, but if we did at the same time, I'm not like it wouldn't surprise me. Because like I said, a guy like D'Amico Ryans, defensive head coach, they're winning games. CJ Stroud's playing amazing, but the only thing they're struggling is getting to the quarterback right now. They need some more help on that defensive line. They have a lot of picks that they could trade. Like I said, what would that trade value look like though? But then also the new ownerships, possible new head coach, possible new GM. Are they going to want to pay Chase Young? And what does that look like? You have Montez Sweat, you have Cam Curl, you have a ton of free agents next year. Curtis Samuel, Antonio Gibson. I mean, the list of free agents next year is pretty long, honestly. Chase Young trade, I don't like it. Keith, I don't disagree with you. The Steelers would absolutely take him. Dominique Greer, I think they would want a guy like Chase Young. But it's going to be thrown around. It's been thrown around since last season, honestly. Since before the season even started, Chase Young is going to get traded. Will it happen? I don't know. Is it a possibility? I'm not counting anything out because you just don't know how aggressive the new owners are going to want to be. And then you also don't know, is it even a possibility that we can sign him next year? What does he want contract-wise? But then you have to think about the depth that we have. James Smith-Williams. You saw Casey Toohill yesterday, 2 sacks. His best game in his NFL career yesterday, 2 sacks. You also have Efe Obada, who gets a lot of rotation when he's healthy, and he gets a lot of production when he's on the field. You just drafted KJ Henry in the 5th round, And then also Andre Jones in the 7th, who looked really good when he was on the field in the preseason. So I'm not ruling it out because Washington has one of the deepest edge groups in the NFL. But you have to think when there's a top 5 pick, I don't care who it is, quarterback, edge rusher, wide receiver, whatever. Of course, like the magnitude of that trade is going to be monumental. Fans are going to hate it. Some are going to like it. But it's just, it's going to be like, did we do the right move? We drafted him number 2 overall. Was it the right move? Did we get enough back for Chase Young? That's what's going to be the biggest thing. DC Command Justice said Chase Young, Cody Barton for Patrick Queen. I love Patrick Queen. I don't think he's even on the trade block, but still, I don't know if that's a good trade. Cody Barton has absolutely no value. First of all, we're not trading Cody Barton. He has the green dot. I know he's awful. He's not good, but we are not trading Cody Barton. But let me go to the polls real quick. Should Washington trade Jacoby Brissett? 53% actually agree with me. 53% said yes, and then 47% said no for Jacoby Brissett. And this is the one I want to hear what y'all have to say. What should Washington do with Chase Young? Should you trade him, let him walk after the season, or do you pay him? And my biggest thing is, if you pay him, what does that look like? So keep this in mind before you select. We have new owners, a possible new GM, maybe a new head coach next season. There's a lot going into this season coming up. I know you only have 2 weeks. Right now, it's probably the highest the stock's going to be. Can he stay healthy? There's a lot of factors with Chase Young. Chase Young is just Chase is Chase, man. Like, I love Chase to death, but you just have no idea what you're going to get out of him. Because what if you pay him and then he gets hurt again? Or can you even pay Chase Young? Can you pay Montez Sweat and Cam Curl at the same time? And then, like I said, you have to try to retain these guys. Kendall Fuller is a free agent. Like I said, Curtis Samuel, Antonio Gibson, some of these other guys. So, like I said, some fans want to trade them, some don't. I'm just saying that rumor is going to be out there until October 31st when the trade deadline is over. And if I were to trade them, obviously I wouldn't want them to go to the NFC. Would that be like a deal breaker for me? No. But at the same time, I'd rather him go to a team like the Texans or even the Ravens. If he wants to stay close to home, cool. Go to Baltimore. Tell them to give us like a 3rd-round pick or something. Not saying that we're guaranteed to draft somebody good with that pick, by the way. You just never know, especially after this last draft. But you just never know. Chase is the one that everyone's going to talk about. That's the more popular one. And this one I have is kind of a hot take, but honestly, I kind of like it. I'm kind of going back on what I said this offseason because I thought this guy was going to have a big season. What if we traded Antonio Gibson to the Las Vegas Raiders? What if we sent him out to Las Vegas? I'm going to talk to you about this one. This isn't one that I saw online. This is one that I kind of came up with. One, Las Vegas needs help. They're bad. Like I said, Antonio Gibson is a free agent next year. They have Josh Jacobs, who don't really have anything to complement behind him. And he's also only on a franchise tag. They're not going to pay Josh Jacobs. Just straight up. They're not going to pay Josh Jacobs. So next season, they need something. Fumble Meister. We don't have to tell him that he fumbles. the Raiders don't have to do their homework. It's fine. But the Raiders do have Jacobs, but that's it. And then after next season, like I said, he's gone. They're going to start over. So you might as well trade, get some money in there now, get the run game going. We don't know what Jimmy Garoppolo is like. He's banged up his back. He was in the hospital last night. You just have no idea what you could get for Antonio Gibson. It'd probably be like a 5th or a 6th or like a 7th. I don't care. First off, don't let the touchdown yesterday fool you. He does not do anything for us except fumble the ball. And I want to see more Chris Rodriguez. And I have another scenario that, if we trade Antonio Gibson, our running game is bottom 10 in the NFL in every single category. Total yards, yards per carry, yards per average, and probably even touchdowns too. Because the only B-Rob touchdowns he's gotten really is he's had more receiving touchdowns than running touchdowns, probably. We're not getting Saquon Barkley. Cut that out. I wish. I love Saquon. He went to Penn State. But yeah, someone said Vegas might be dumb enough to give us a 4th for Gibson. Vegas does some stupid things. They draft really bad and they just have terrible business decisions. And the Giants are pretty stupid too, but they're not going to get rid of Barkley. But Josh Jacobs, like I said, they only franchise tagged him. They have no help behind him. And he's pretty much their entire running game. So they might as well trade for a running back. I think Antonio Gibson's a good option for him. They can use him in the receiving game as well. They might be trading guys like Hunter Renfrow. You just never know. But our running game is non-existent right now. I want to see more Chris Rodriguez. We saw a few carries yesterday. What do you like? 4 carries yesterday. And I think Washington could also be in the market to trade for a running back. And I have one for y'all that I'll bring up next, actually. But I'm not out the run. What do y'all think? Antonio Gibson, I'm not saying he's on the trade block, but if a team calls us like, look, we need we need some running back help. I think a team like the Raiders, maybe even like the Bucks, could be a couple teams. You know, they're not tanking right now. Like the Raiders aren't in like a tanking mode. The Bucks aren't in a tanking mode right now. The Bucks are actually better than we thought they were going to be. We thought Mike Evans was going to be a guy that's going to get traded. They're going to keep him as well. You just never know. But this is one that I saw floating around. Kind of surprised me. And I know y'all are going to hate it. I don't really like it too because I think this guy is super underrated. And that is Curtis Samuel. I know. You're going to be like, what the heck are you talking about? But I was going through a couple of trade scenarios, a couple of trade rumors and projections. And Jordan Dajani out of CBS Sports says that the Chiefs are going to be aggressive in getting another wide receiver. And he called Curtis Samuel a sneaky option, not saying this as like something that people are saying. This is like, oh, people are saying Curtis Samuel is a possible trade scenario. But he said a couple options. You know, of course, like I said, Mike Evans would be the top wide receiver, Jerry Jeudy, something like that. But he said, don't be surprised if they want like more of like a sneaky, like a Terrace Marshall or a Curtis Samuel kind of guy. But I think Curtis Samuel is super underrated on this team. I personally would hate it. I love Curtis Samuel. Third down scenarios, red zone plays. Curtis Samuel's great. He's been huge for us, whether he's running the ball or he's receiving. And I want to see him run the ball more because our running game is bad. And that's what he did at Ohio State. He was in the backfield. He was doing wildcat. He was doing everything. End arounds, jet sweeps, whatever. Curtis Samuel, super underrated. But at the same time, once again, he is another free agent that we have coming up. So do you pay Curtis Samuel? Can you afford to pay him? And if you do keep Gibson, do you pay Gibson? And then you have all these guys in defense. I know the salary cap's going to go up. Cool. But still, it's what is Curtis Samuel's contract going to look like? And honestly, out of the receiving game we have right now, Jahan's kind of let me down lately. Dyami Brown hasn't done anything. Pringle was supposed to be a guy that I thought would have some kind of role here because he played with Eric Bieniemy. I thought he was going to have some, more snaps, more reps on the field, but we're not seeing it. So I personally would not want to trade Curtis Samuel. He could be one of those guys where you just lose him in free agency and then maybe get a comp pick back if you don't sign a big-time free agent this season, which honestly, I don't want to do. Free agents don't work out here. Cody Barton, Andrew Wiley. Juju Smith-Schuster, that's another good one. E. Carter, 404. There's a lot of guys that could be traded at wide receiver-wise. And Jacoto said the wide receiver draft class next year is deep. Oh, my God. This is probably one of my favorite wide receiver classes ever. Obviously, you have Marvin Harrison Jr. going like top 5. Then you have like Neighbors. Jamari Thrash is one of my favorite ones. Burden out of Missouri. Oh my gosh, there's so many wide receivers in draft class. Probably one of my favorite ones. And I wasn't really surprised when we got Jahan. I feel like we all knew that we were going to get a wide receiver. Does Washington get back in that boat next season of maybe we do have to get another wide receiver? If we do lose Curtis Samuel in free agency or if we trade him, Terry and Jahan is like all we have. You kind of need something behind that. So maybe they get like a 3rd, 4th round wide receiver because like I said, this is a super, super deep draft class coming up. But at the same time, do you trade Curtis Samuel before Halloween to a team that really needs a wide receiver that needs to make a push? And that's the thing about a skill position player. What does that look like? A backup quarterback, maybe a depth piece, or maybe a running back like Antonio Gibson doesn't get you enough of an asset back to like say, yes, that's who we need to trade. But a skill position guy like Curtis Samuel, who, like I said, I think he's super underrated. I think the league thinks higher of him than a lot of us fans even do. But Curtis is a guy that I had to study for the scouting academy. I was impressed. I think he breaks a lot of tackles. I think he's elusive. I think he has really good body control. He does a lot of the good things. Didn't have the best start here being injured, but I think Curtis Samuel's been a lot better than people expected. I personally, once again, do not want him to get traded, but I've seen a couple of media outlets saying that he could be a sneaky option for a team like the Kansas City Chiefs or maybe the Carolina Panthers, who still got rid of DJ Moore in him. That would have been terrible, but maybe he goes back to Carolina. Like maybe they get aggressive. They've made it publicly known that they want a wide receiver. They need to give Bryce Young some help. Adam Thielen is the only wide receiver catching anything in Carolina. And Bryce Young looked good yesterday. But when a team comes out and says, we are going to be aggressive and looking for a wide receiver, you never know. Maybe they are desperate looking and we can throw it out there, see what they want for Curtis Samuel. Once again, I do not approve of Curtis Samuel leaving. I think he's been great for us, and I think it's a great weapon for Sam Howell, but my guy Jahan Dotson needs to step it up. I'm kind of disappointed. But say we trade Curtis Samuel, say we get rid of him, or even if we don't, what the heck? I'm throwing this out there. This guy is someone that's obviously been talked about. That's Mecole Hardman for the Jets. Mecole Hardman, I remember him from Georgia. I loved him as a prospect. He did a lot of good things for the Chiefs. Eric Bieniemy did a lot of really good things with Mecole Hardman, but for some reason he has just not been in the Jets' plans whatsoever. And like I said, we haven't gotten anything out of Dyami Brown. He drops a lot. We haven't done anything for out of Pringle. Once again, was a guy that came over from the Chiefs as well. I thought he was going to have a bigger role. The Jets are looking to trade Mecole Hardman, and it's been publicly known once again for a long time. Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport, a lot of guys have come out and said, this is a guy that you could easily trade for. And ZCXIII said, if you trade Curtis, get Renfrow for Gibby. Not a bad option. I don't know what happened to Hunter Renfrow. He went from like one of the best route. I thought he was turning into like Cooper Kupp. Like he has a phenomenal routes, really good after the catch. Yep, Troy Miles Jr. 21 said Renfrow's on the block. I don't disagree with that at all, especially if you put him in the slot. I think that'd be good. I want to see what that looks like. So if we can trade Gibby for Renfrow straight up, I'm doing that all day. But at the same time, if a guy like Hardman is out there, a lot of speed, I think he would give us something out of that depth at the wide receiver position that we haven't gotten lately. And I know, look, guys, we need to feed Terry as much as possible. And I'm not sure why Jahan isn't getting targeted as much. And I know he had that one bad drop yesterday. He's had 2 bad drops in the season, but then he also had the touchdown. He's made some crazy catches. That one-hander I know is preseason. But I'm obviously not down on Jahan. I'm a Jahan fan for the rest of my life. So, but after those 2 guys, what does that look like? Yes, we have Curtis Samuel, who's been better than Jahan Dotson. I think he's like wide receiver 3. But if we get rid of him, and even if we don't, a guy like Mecole Hardman, if he was wide receiver 4, if he took over Curtis Samuel's spot, I think that's a good return on investment. And say he just plays the rest of this season, he'd be super cheap. Maybe you pay him next season as well. He's not that old. But then also, you don't want your another wide receiver to be a need on the team next year. You don't want to start trading things to where you're creating more needs in the offseason, to where you're going to have to get more free agents. You're not able to pay your guys. You have to, start drafting off of position, not the best player available, which we clearly don't do this last year. Let's see. What about our secondary? Our receivers do not get a lot of immediate separation. I'd say Jahan gets a lot of immediate separation. He's like the only one. Terry at times does too, but Terry's just so good in like contested catches and stuff. It doesn't matter. Our receivers, immediate. He's a keyword is immediate. And there's so much to a route as well. Like I'm not going to break down wide receivers. That's like my favorite position to look at and watch. But at the wide receiver position, you need a little bit more help out of some of these depth guys. Jamison Crowder's been great on special teams. I'd like to see him maybe that big return yesterday. Like I felt like I was back in the day watching Jamison Crowder return that punt, but we need to see a little bit more on offense. So I would like to see maybe him get rotated in, but I'm not counting out a guy like Hardman coming over. Once again, Eric Bieniemy knows who he is, did a lot of good things with him. You could use him in the run game. Shoot, there's just so much you could do. Let's go ahead and look at the polls real quick. What should Washington do with Chase Young? Oh, it's split. 47% say trade him, 47% say pay him, and then 6% just say let him walk after the season. So we learned literally nothing except everyone's 50-50 on what we should do with Chase Young. I don't know. I hate giving up on Chase Young, but at the same time, if I know that I can't pay him a reasonable contract, I have no problem trading him. If we get like a third out of it, cool. I love what we have at the depth position. It's not anything personal in Chase Young. It's strictly business. I love Andre Jones. I love what I saw out of him. Casey Toohill looked phenomenal yesterday. And like I said, Efe Obada, KJ Henry, you traded up to get him. Why? Show me why you traded up to get KJ Henry. Are we going to trade Chase Young? I don't know. But if we did, I would be like, oh my God, like I'm so mad. Like I'm not a fan anymore. Like I'd be like, it's business. What do we get? Now, if we got like nothing for him, I'd be pissed. Now think about this. How pissed are you going to be when he walks in free agency and we get nothing for him? Yes, if he walks, though, we might get a comp pick depending on what we do, but that kind of limits us. Like, once again, you can't sign any free agents at that point. Last poll for y'all. I'm going to wrap up this trade talk. So there's a couple honorable mentions. Garrett Bowles, left tackle out of Denver, is a one that's been brought up a lot. People are talking about linebackers. Maybe we can trade for a linebacker, like, I don't know, Monte David, Devin White, whoever's out there. But I mean, I hate what Cody Barton's doing on the field. I think he played a little bit better yesterday, which isn't saying much. But real quick, last poll: should Washington add another running back? Yes or no? But I just don't think that Washington's going to trade for a linebacker because, one, they've shown us that they're not willing to upgrade, and Jack Del Rio loves how Cody Barton plays, apparently. And then we saw some good out of Khaleke Hudson or yesterday. So I want to see a little bit more of Hudson. I want to see what that looks like. And then, we got Jabril Cox not that long ago. We haven't seen anything out of him yet. So I think there's a couple players I want to see rotated in before I'm trading for a linebacker, especially if you have to trade a pick for a linebacker. This is a really good linebacker class coming up too. I'm not saying like, we need to get another one for a first round. La Cabra said trade for a linebacker from the 49ers. I wanted to last offseason when Al-Shaair was a free agent. Now he's on the Titans and he's playing really well. I'm sure their backups are just as good. They have the deepest linebacker group I've ever seen in my life. I really wanted Al-Shaair, and he went to the Titans. That was like the one offseason move I was dying for. I did not want Cody Barton. I wanted Al-Shaair, and he's playing really good. He's a great starter. There was a couple guys they were thinking about getting, like Rashaan Evans. We could have got Zach Cunningham, who's played really well for the Eagles. They signed him like right before the season, by the way. Jacoto, I agree, though. I want to see more Khaleke Hudson and Jabril Cox before we trade a pick. Think about that. You want to trade a pick for a linebacker out there in the middle of the season. You don't know what he's going to look like. You don't know what that contract's going to be. What the contract's going to look like. But then this linebacker draft coming up is so good. I really like it. And subscribe to my YouTube channel, JTFB. I'm going to start going through some draft prospects soon as well. I'm not saying like the season's over, but the draft season's all season for me. So Khaleke is literally our best linebacker. Jamin got, put some respect on Jamin Davis. Jamin's been really good lately. People just don't understand. Like Jamin, I know he gets a lot of hate. He's been a first-round draft pick, but still, I think Jamin Davis last year was good, and I think this year he's been even better. Guy's first interception yesterday. Put the clamps on Bijan. Some people say he got lucky. I think for a linebacker, he was lined up as a corner. Like he was lined up at corner, literally. He wasn't like out wide as a linebacker. The dude was on the sideline covering Bijan Robinson. I think he did great. But let me move to my last one. And this is, like I said, I mentioned the running game. We're bottom 10 in almost every single category. This was one of my draft crushes this season. I told y'all the Jets are going to be on here a good bit. Izzy Abanikanda, or Bonaconda, for those who want to say it correctly. I love what Izzy did at Pittsburgh. This is one of the youngest running backs in the NFL draft this offseason. He was like 19 or 20 going into the draft. He just turned 21 in October when I looked it up. He had the highest relative athletic score out of any running back in the entire draft. And he showcases his speed. We saw it in the preseason. He showed a lot of flashes, but then they trade for Dalvin Cook. So they have Breece Hall, Dalvin Cook, Michael Carter Jr., and they have somebody else, and then they have Izzy Abanikanda. And he just hasn't played. He's just inactive all the time. So I think Washington is dying for a home run player. I'm not saying he's going to come in here and look like Devon Achane, but when you talk about speed-wise, when you talk about home run ability-wise, he has that same ability. And we brought him here for a visit when we were prepping for the draft. He had a private visit with us. We met with him a couple times, whether it was at he wasn't at the Senior Bowl, but like the Combine, and then he came to Ashburn. Like we met with Izzy a couple times. So like I was getting my hopes up with Izzy Abanikanda because I was like, this could be a guy that we actually land. But instead we get Chris Rodriguez. And like I said, I want to see more of him too. But we were missing heavily that elusive back, that home run back that has that speed, that game changer in the running game. And I know B-Rob's great. I love B-Rob. He's going to run guys over. But we need that change of pace back that we thought Antonio Gibson was going to be. He's not that guy. He is not that guy in the running game. Could he be that guy in the receiving game? Yes. But especially if you get rid of Antonio Gibson, Abanikanda is a guy I'm calling the Jets for. Like, look, I mentioned Jacoby Brissett. You want Jacoby Brissett? Cool. You drafted this guy in the 5th round. You're essentially getting a 5th round pick for Jacoby Brissett. Give me Izzy Abanikanda. Like, rookie contract, super young. Like, he's just now hitting like his stride as a running back in his career. Give me that guy. Someone said we don't need more running backs unless we trade Gibson. He's a fumble king. And that's something I talked about. I don't know when y'all joined on to the stream, but Antonio Gibson was the third one I talked about as a possible trade scenario. I had us sending him over to the Raiders, whether it's for like a 5th, 6th round pick. I don't care what it's for. But he's a free agent. So get something out of him. now before you get nothing out of him in free agency. And we're not paying Antonio Gibson, obviously. And he doesn't really do anything anyways. Like, I know he scored yesterday, but great. It was a great play call by EB, but I don't trust him in the running game. And he's been super limited in the receiving game. So if you add a young guy like Izzy, I think that would be the biggest thing for me. I'm dying for a running back like this. This was one of the biggest needs, in my opinion. And when we had the draft and I was looking at guys like him, I like Devon Achane too. Like, can you imagine if we would have got him instead of like Quan Martin or something like that? Like, instead of getting 2 DBs in the first 2 rounds, imagine if we would have actually added a skill position player that's balling out like Devon is, even though he's hurt right now. Gibson for Jacobs. Oh God, no. I love Jacobs, but they would never do that. And he's super expensive this year. He's not tradable at all. You don't like B-Rob. I love B-Rob. I'm an Alabama guy. Like, B-Rob is my dude. I watched him for 4 years at Alabama. But at the same time, you can't just rely heavily on Brian Robinson to just, be that physical back throughout the entire game, all 4 quarters. You need that change of pace back. And like I said, you look at Miami. I know that Devon Achane and who's their starting running back? Mostert. I get him in Madden literally every time I play. Those guys are pretty much the same, but they're just killing you with speed. But what we're doing is the complete opposite. We're just trying to run guys over with Chris Rodriguez, who's like the same guy as Brian Robinson. And then we were hoping that Gibson would be that change of pace back, but he's not. He's fumbling too much. So we need a guy like Izzy Abanikanda who can come in, be that fast guy who can make guys miss and have these big home run plays. Because like I said, we are bottom 10 in the NFL in almost every rushing category. I think we're like the 5th or 6th worst in rushing yards per game. And I know we don't run the ball enough anyways. But at the same time, we are heavily missing that running back that can come in and just make plays. But guys, those are my trade scenarios. Like I said, those are just a couple things I've seen out there from media outlets saying like these are possibilities, these are rumors, whatever. These aren't ones I'm saying is going to happen. But if I was to look for something, I think the most likely would be maybe Jacoby Brissett. If a team like the Jets realize like, yes, Zach Wilson is not it, and our defense is playing too well to not be aggressive and get a quarterback. Any top tier tight ends on the trade block. Only ones I've seen. I'm trying to think. I was just going through so many last night. I like Mike Gesicki out of the Patriots. They have Hunter Henry, who he might be on the trade block too. It just depends on which one they want to keep. So super deep tight end room for the Patriots. Mac Jones is awful. They're bad. Like, they might as well just start selling some players too. So I wouldn't mind Mike Gesicki, Penn State guy. Kind of wanted him in the offseason. He didn't get paid a lot, so I was kind of mad we didn't get him. And he's super young. He's still like 27 or something like that. Super cool guy. He's kind of weird. But I would like a guy that maybe like Mike Gesicki help. We need more weapons, honestly. And I know Jahan's just been a letdown right now, but I'm not giving up on him. But we still need some more weapons. So there's not a lot of tight ends. I would say probably look towards the Broncos because they have pretty deep. Albert O is another guy I like coming out. And like I said, the Patriots with both of their guys. That's my scenario, guys. Maybe Jacoby gets traded. Maybe Antonio Gibson. Does Chase Young get traded? That's the biggest storyline that we're going to be looking until October 31st for the trade deadline. I say he doesn't. I think he's just playing well right now. If anything, like I said, you get a comp pick in free agency if you lose him to somebody else. So I appreciate y'all coming by. Follow me on Twitter at Josh Taylor FB or X, whatever you want to call it. And real quick, should Washington add another running back? Wow, 68% said no. I'm disappointed in y'all. No, I'm just kidding. But I think we should definitely because our running game is steak. And I said that on Twitter yesterday. Like I said, subscribe to the YouTube channel JTFB. I'll be doing some more videos and I'll be doing some more streams on Bleacher Report as well. So appreciate y'all stopping in. And I'll see y'all next time here on Bleacher Report. Peace. Underdog Fantasy is the best place to participate in all of your fantasy contests, whether it's the NFL, MLB, PGA Golf, NBA, even college football. This user-friendly app, you can win up to 20 times your money in a single night. And my favorite part is that when you sign up in your first deposit and you use my promo code JTFB, they will double your first deposit up to $100. Now, how does it work? You pick lower or higher on stat projections that Underdog Fantasy gives you, whether it's passing yards, rebounds, points, you name it. And for each selection, say you want to select 3 people or 4 people, your odds go up based off of how many you select. My favorite feature, however, is sometimes I want to make 4 selections and I'm not feeling too confident in all of them. I love taking advantage of the pick'em insurance to where if I miss one pick in my contest, I still get paid out on lower odds. So sign up today, download the app, and use my promo code JTFB to get up to $100 in your first deposit.